Okay, here's some more rocket science. What I've done is I put the main spar in, but previously to putting the first main spar in, I cleaned up the center section with a little bit of sandpaper on a block. I made sure everything matched up nice. I put a little bead of CA where the wings meet, not a lot, just a little bit. I pinned them together, and after I pinned them together, I ran a bead of CA across here. After I run the bead of CA across there, I went through and took a napkin or paper towel and wiped off most of that residual CA, and then I activated it with some kicker. Okay, after that, I went through and I put thick CA in the main spar slot all the way across the bottom. After I did that, I pushed the push pins in multiple places to hold the spar to the bottom and make sure it's at the bottom, and then I activated it in a few places all the way across. Then, once that's done, I take a bead of Gorilla Glue without water and I put it on top of that main spar. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is pull the pins out for that. That was holding that down because now it's got a little bit of Gorilla on it. And it's nice. It's nice and ready to go. Now I have another spray bottle, but this one has water in it. So since I put a little bit of, I didn't go crazy with the Gorilla Glue. I just put a nice bead down on it. I took a popsicle stick, spread it back and forth, and now I'm going to squirt a little water in there before I put this second spar, which is the second main solid rod. That's going to go right on top of the other main. So I'm going to spritz it with a little bit of water. That's going to help it cure. I don't even have to mix it. That water is going to take off and activate that. So now what I want to do is lay this other main spar in directly on top of that. And once it's laid on top, I'm going to spray it in a few places, or I should say not spray it, but I'm going to lock it in a few places with some CA. Probably like 6 spots. So it won't float from that, what's going on below it. And that's going to foam up, and then after that I'll lock it. Now, that's going to keep it from floating. You can do it with pins too. Sometimes I'll go through, which I'll go ahead and do it. I'll lock a couple pins in there in a few choice places to keep that spar from floating. Lock it in, it'll make it nice and strong. And the trick is you want the wing ends hanging off the bench and the center section laying on the bench. This will keep your washout correct in the airfoil. What I'm going to do is run another really light bead. Gorilla Glue on top of this main. And you can put the if the needles are in the way, you can put the needles in later after you mix this in. Doesn't really matter. It just depends on your preference or how you want to work it. So what I'm going to do is spread this out a little bit, this Gorilla Glue. After it's spread out, I will go through and wipe this stuff down. Around the edges with the paper towel if it gets messy. If not, you don't have to do that. You can pre-mix some of this up in a cup with a few drops of water if you want to do that too. Sometimes that works. Just put a little extra where it was a little thin. And take your water. Give it a nice spritz, a nice mist. give it a nice mist, it really gets down into that glue and helps to activate it. And then I'll run a little bit more motion through there. That'll help some of that water mix in with those glues. Once it starts to foam up, don't disturb it. You know, and now what you got to do is, in a fairly good hurry, you got to go through and have these already cut to length, your wing spars, and you got to put them in because they have to be encapsulated with the foaming glue over the mains. So what you want to do is put those in there and then pin them in. Pin them in nice and tight so they're not going to float. You don't have to be shy with the pins. Just pin it all over the place. This will help the wing come out nice and straight. The most important thing about doing this is to get this spar glued in to at least the first 50% of the wing. You don't have to right now really glue the out part of the wing. You just want to make sure that this spar is going to be encapsulated in the PU around the mains. And if you can do that, then you can literally put the wing on its side after all this is done and look down this spar, make sure everything is straight, and then lock the remaining 50% of this airplane spar in. And you can pretty much do that at the top and the bottom at the same time. Look at them from the top to the bottom and make sure you got it locked in straight. Sometimes if you would go through and lock all this in 100% right down all the way to the end, it might be crooked. But right now I'm mostly concerned about this area where it's going to encapsulate the spar. Please pre-fit all spars in all areas. You're also going to find that where the main wing spar, the rods that go out to the wingtips, at the very ends of the old Z2 area, right here, at the very ends, there's a little piece of foam right there. You're going to want to clear that out before you do any of this because it stops, but you want it to continue on out to the end. Okay, take your trusty CA and run it out at first 50% of the airplane. The first 50% of the actual sparred area for these wing rods. And you can stop when it gets to the PU because the PU is going to encapsulate it. And sometimes I also let it sit for a few minutes before I lock it because that allows the super glue to go ahead and get around the main wing rod spar. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a close-up and show you kind of what's going on here. Pull the camera off here. Now what you see is I've put that 210 rod spar all the way out to the tips. I only glued it from this point here to here. I can glue the rest of it later, and then I can also be able to eyeball the wing to make sure, and when I look down the wing to make sure that this wing is straight either way. Right now it's not real critical. I'm just trying to get this area to where this PU and all these spars encapsulate. You can see the foam now. The foam's coming up. You don't have to go crazy with the PU. You only need to put a small bead in there and mix it like I showed. You can see the whole channel is being completely filled, and it will fill all the way up. Don't disturb it. Let it fill. Once it gets either all the way dry or 80% dry, you're golden. It'll be perfect. And same with this spar at this end. It's already been set in, and it's only done to there. Later, we can go ahead and do the rest, but I'm not going to worry about that. I would rather take a look at it by flipping the wing on its side and making sure it looks good. So that's how you spar. That's how I spar the Z2 too at the same time. The only thing that's different is the mains are solid in here and these other ones are longer. But I figure I'd do a tutorial on this for you real quick to show you. Should be nice. I think you guys will do this with ease.